breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
A warm and friendly hello. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you as we're going to be joined in segment number 2 by one of our good friends, Matt Josephs, aka Major Matt. He does a tremendous job over at the Prop Queen website. He does a great job over at ESPN Radio in Richmond with the show Border to Border. We're going to talk with him about how he handles the prop market with all these trade deadline moves happening, how he's taking a look at the trade deadline in general, and just some of the props that he's been playing a lot more recently in the last few months. In the final segment, going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Wednesday as we touch them all. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, LRCM maybe does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. While I did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, everything is powered by EdgeBoost. EdgeBoost is making sure that bettors are able to have access to their funds whenever and wherever they want. EdgeBoost is able to give you cashback rewards as you utilize the fine website/app as well. And when you go to edgeboost.bet, put in that promo code of Greg, G-R-E-G. That gets you a dollar for dollar match on your first deposit up to $25. Now let's take a look back at everything that we saw in baseball on Tuesday. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
The Baltimore Orioles sweep their doubleheader over the Toronto Blue Jays. They win game number 2 by a count of 3-2 as for Eric Lauer, not a bad start here, 2 runs allowed in 5 innings. Uriel Rodriguez, Sir Anthony Dominguez, who was with the Orioles in game number 1, both had a scoreless inning, and then Josh Hoffman, he gives up a run in an inning, and for the Blue Jays, they go 0 of 8 with men in scoring position, as for Mr. Brandon Young, he gives up 2 runs in 6 innings. Keegan Aiken, Andrew Kittredge, and Corbin Martin were all able to lend a scoreless inning, and game 1 was a complete and utter bludgeoning, as for the Orioles, they get a 16-4 win over the Blue Jays, so just completely lambasted here as Easton Lucas, the starter, did not last long in this game. He goes for 2 2/3 innings, allows 4 runs, all of which were earned, and then things got worse from there as Luzardo Estrada gives up 6 runs in 3 1/3 innings, including a pair of homers. You had from there Chad Green give up 4 runs in an inning as he allowed a pair of homers, and it was 2 runs given up in an inning by Ali Sanchez to close things out. And for the Blue Jays, so you did have Joey Luperfido get his 3rd home run of the campaign, and Edison Barger, 15th home run season for Barger, goes deep off of Charlie Martin. He gives up 3 runs over the course of 6 innings, including that bomb. Ynier Cano, don't you know, he had a scoreless inning, and Yarmil Geraldo, he was able to come in for 2 innings, did allow a solo home run as going deep for the Orioles in this one. You had Ramon Urias get home runs number 7 and 8 of the campaign for Mr. Gunnar Henderson, his 12th home run season, and Tyler O'Neill, he goes deep. That was home run number 7 of the season for him. You've had the Detroit Tigers struggle quite a bit lately, but they busted out against the Arizona Diamondbacks 12-2. They take him down as Brandon Pfaadt. He battled his way through 4 2/3 innings, but he allowed 7 runs, all of which were earned, including not 1, not 2, but 3 home runs. As going deep off of him, you had Gleyber Torres get his 11th home run season, Mr. Riley Green, his 26th home run season, and Zach McKinstry, home run number 9 of the campaign. Casey Mize only goes 1 2/3 innings, by the way. Allows 2 runs, 1 of which was earned, but the bullpen from there did their part. Tyler Holton, along with Chase Lee, they're both able to give you a scoreless inning. You had 3 1/3 innings scoreless out of Bryant Herter, and then Luke Jackson piecemeals together 2 scoreless innings, and for Arizona, the bullpen was not so great, as you had Jake Woodford give up a run in an inning. The backup catcher, Jose Herrera, gives up a run in an inning. John Curtis with 2 S's, he was able to give you a scoreless inning, and Brandon Garcia comes in for a 3rd of an inning. He gave up 3 runs along the way. You had the Colorado Rockies do what they do best, lose 10-4. The Cleveland Guardians absolutely take it to them as Tanner Gordon, 7 runs, 6 of which were earned, give it up in 3 innings as Kyle Manzardo takes them deep for his 17th home run season. Then off of Jimmy Erget, Manzardo gets his 18th home run season. Erget gives up that home run in 2 innings of work. Anel Shavili gives up 2 runs in 2 innings, and then you did have a scoreless inning out of the bullpen from Jaden Hill. For the Rockies, you did also have a trio of home runs as Logan Allen gives up a pair. Michael Paglia, 11th home run season. And then Jordan Beck, his 12th home run season. Kyle Farmer, when it was too little too late, off of Tim Aaron, 5th home run season. Aaron gives up that home run in his inning work. Matthew Festa gives up an under run in his inning. And Logan Allen, 2 solo home runs allowed in 7 innings. So Nice easy win there, and a nice win for the Houston Astros, 7-4. They're able to take down the Washington Nationals. As for the Nats, you did have Luis Garcia get his 9th home run season. That comes off of Jason Alexander. No, not the man from Seinfeld. 2 runs allowed in 4 2/3 innings. Brian King and Brian Abreu both give up a run in an inning, so similar performances for the Bryants. Brandon Sosa for outside the bullpen scoreless, and Josh Hader a scoreless inning. And you had Uriel Diaz and you had Yanir Diaz get his 14th home run season. That comes off of Mr. Michael Soroka, who gives up 2 runs in 3 1/3 innings. Might be on the move, so they preserved him. You had from there 4 runs given up with 5 outs from Andre Lara. You had a scoreless 1 2/3 innings from Jackson Rutledge, and then Cole Henry, Andrew Chafin. They both go for 2/3 of an inning, with Chafin giving up a run along the way. Jesus Luzardo was able to find it for the Philadelphia Phillies on Tuesday. 6-3, the Phils take it to the White Sox. As for Luzardo, 7 scoreless innings. From there, Jordan Romano gives up nothing in his inning of work, but Daniel Robert, he did give up 3 runs in the 9th inning. So if you had the under in this game, that was rough. As for the White Sox, going deep off of him, Lennon Sosa, his 10th home run of the campaign. And for the Cannon, Jonathan Cannon, he was launched out of a cannon. 6 runs allowed in 6 innings, including a pair of home runs. Kyle Schwarber, his 37th home run season, and Brandon Marsh, his 4th. But Tyler Gilbert, a scoreless inning, and Dan Altavia was able to come in, and he gave 2 scoreless innings for the Milwaukee Brewers. This team continues to be hot. 64-43, that is the best record in all baseball. And they take down the Chicago Cubs by kind of 9-3. As for Colin Ray, he said hip hip boo to giving up 4 runs in 4 innings. Drew Pomerantz gives up a run in 1/3 of an inning. Ryan Presley, 4 runs, 3 of which were given up in his inning of work, as Andrew Vaughn took him deep, 10th home run of the campaign. And then Ryan Brazier, pair of outside the bullpen scoreless. And then you had Brooks Kriske and Gavin Hollowell both land a scoreless inning for the Cubs. You had Nico Horner go deep off of Quinn Priester, his 4th home run season. Priester gives up 2 runs in 5 2/3 innings, and then Aaron Ashby, 3 1/3 innings of long relief, allows just 1 run along the way. The Minnesota Twins gave up quite a few runs to the Boston Red Sox. 8-5 the final in this one, as Pierce Uhl got his MLB debut, and it did not go as planned. 4 runs allowed in 3 innings, including a home run. From there, Michael Tonkin gives up a solo home run in his 2 innings of work. Cody Funderburk gives up a run in 2 innings. Cole Sands, Louis Varland both come in for an inning, with Varland giving up 2 unearned runs along the way. And for Boston, Lucas Giolito, pretty darn solid. 1 run allowed in 6 innings. Bullpen was not great in this one. Jorge Alcala gives up a home run in his 2/3 innings of work, as Brooks Lee took him deep for his 9th home run season. And then he was able to get home run number 10 of the season off of Justin Wilson, who gives up 2 runs in his inning of work. Garrett Whitlock, though, a scoreless inning and a roll to Chapman, got the final out to be able to close out the game. And for Boston, Trevor Story, well, it was chapter 16 for him, 16th home run season, and you had Mr. Jarren Duran get his 10th home run of the season, so the Red Sox persevere. They find a way to get the job done there, and for the Atlanta Braves, they're back to 16 games below 500, 9-6. The Royals get it done as Eric Fetty gets whopped. 4 runs allowed in 4 2/3 innings, including a home run to Vinny Pasquantino, 18th home run season. From there, Angel de los Santos gives up 3 runs in 1 2/3 innings. Aaron Bummer lived up to his name. 2/3 of an inning, he gives up 2 runs, and Rafael Montero was more like Rafael Montero Bull. He gives up a scoreless inning, so he was able to actually do a solid job here. And for the Kansas City Royals, how about Seth Lugo giving you 5 2/3 innings? He allows 3 runs, including a pair of bombs. Marcell Ozuna, 15th home run season. Austin Riley is 16th. From there, Anel Zerpa gives up 2 runs in 1/3 of an inning. Lucas Hrsich gives up a run in an inning, but Hunter Harvey, John Schreiber combined for 3 outside the bullpen scoreless, and Carlos Estevez scoreless inning to be able to get a save. You had the Cincinnati Reds be on to a loss to the LA Dodgers, 5-4 the final line. The Reds, by the way, are all of a sudden your new top under team in all baseball. 41 overs, 61 unders, and 6 pushes. This was of the push variety. As for the Dodgers, Tyler Glasnow, not what the team was looking for. 4 runs allowed in 4+ innings, including a pair of home runs, as you had Neovaldi Marte get his 7th home run season, Jake Fraley his 6th, but from there, you had Jack Dreher, Ben Kasparis combined for 2 scoreless innings, Alexis Diaz, Anthony Banda combined for 2 scoreless, and Alex Vesia gets to save a scoreless inning, and Tommy Edman goes deep off of Nick Lodolo, his 12th home run season for Lodolo, gives up 2 runs in 5 1/3 innings with 11 strikeouts. Graham Ashcraft, though, gives up 2 runs in an inning of work. Tony Santillan, he comes in for a scoreless inning. Scott Barlow, pair of outside the bullpen scoreless, and Emilio Pagan gives up a run in the 9th inning that proved to be the difference in this one. Yankees got down 3-0 against the Tampa Bay Rays, but they find a way to persevere. 7-5, they get the win as Joe Boyle. Boyle did not rule. 6 runs, 4 of which were given up in 3 1/3 innings, including a bomb to Cody Bellinger, his 20th home run season, and his 7th in the last, now, I believe, 16 games. Anthony Volpe would also go yard. 15th home run season that comes off of Kevin Kelly, who gives up that home run in his inning work, but bullpen was solid. Ian Seymour, Mason Engler, Brian Baker, lend a scoreless inning. Mason Montgomery, pair of outside the bullpen scoreless, and Max Fried. He has given up now 3+ runs in 5 out of his last 6 starts. He allowed a home run to Jonathan Aranda, his 12th home run of the campaign for Fried. Gives up 4 runs, only 2 of which were earned in 6 2/3 innings. Jonathan the Wise Guy, 4 outside the bullpen squirrels. Devin Williams made things an adventure in the 9th inning. He gave up a run in an inning, but did find a way to close it out and get the job done. And he saw the Pittsburgh Pirates get the job done against the San Francisco Giants. 3-1 the final as for the Buccos. Bailey Falter, he did not live up to his aim, gave up a solo home run over the course of 5 innings of Willie Adama's 16th home run season. That would be it from there. Braxton Ashcraft, 3 scoreless innings in long relief. Dennis Santana, a scoreless inning, and Luvar Piguero gets his first home run of the campaign. That comes off of Justin Verlander, as Verlander allows just a solo home run in 5 innings of work. From there, Joey Lucchesi, Ryan Walker, Tristan Beck all lend a scoreless inning, but it was one Tyler Rogers who gave up 2 runs in an inning of work. That proved to be the difference. Do have to have this up by midnight Pacific time, 3 o'clock a.m. Eastern, so these games are still in the balance, but looking like the Angels might be able to take it to the Rangers. It is currently 7-4 in the bottom of the 7th inning, as for the Rangers, Patrick Corbin gives up 3 runs, 2 of which were earned in 5 innings, but 55 Shades of John Gray was 55 Shades of awful. He gave up 4 runs in 2/3 of an inning. Pride of Hortonville, Wisconsin, Caleb Bouchley, currently in the game. He's gotten it out of the bullpen without giving up an earned run, and Kyle Higashioka did go deep off of Yusei Kikuchi. I say that was home run number 5 of the campaign for Kikuchi. Gives up 10 hits, 4 runs, 3 of which were earned in 5 1/3 innings, but from there, Brock and Roll Burke, pair of outside the bullpen squirrels, and Reed Detmers has gone for a scoreless inning. Right now, you're in the 8th inning between the A's and the Seattle Mariners, and Mariners are currently trailing by kind of 6-1, as you had 6 runs in this game in the bottom of the 5th inning. Scoring has died down as Logan Evans gave up all 6 runs in 4 2/3 innings, including a pair of home runs. Shea Langoliers, Shea Bangs for his 18th home run season, and Brent Rooker, 22nd home run in the campaign. Luis Severino has been awful at home. Entered into this game with a 6.68 ERA in Sacramento. Gives up a 1 run in 5 innings. From there, Elvis Alvarado, Sean Newcomb have both giving a scoreless inning, and you currently have Michael Kelly in to try to hold down the fort for the A's, and for the Padres, they do get the job done against the New York Mets, doing this as it is 7-1 in the 9th inning. Sean Manaea, pretty solid start, gives up 1 run over the course of 5 innings, but Jose Buto really pooped the bed. He got 5 outs and he gave up 5 runs, all of which were in. Chris Stavinsky then gives up a home run with inherited runners onto Manny Machado, 20th home run of the campaign for Ryan Bergert. Not a lot of length, but he got the job done, giving up 1 run in 4 innings. From there, you had Wandy Peralta, Adrian Morejon, Ron Medanaccio, and Jeremiah Estrada. I'll give you a scoreless inning as they're looking to close that thing out in the 9th inning. And if you're looking at what we're getting trend-wise in Major League Baseball, this is with still a few games pending on the card for Tuesday, but it's been an underwhelming season as the under rate is right around about 52.3%, as you've got 808 unders to 736 overs, so the late games are very much trending over. You've got favorites right now hitting at 57% for the season, 9-11 and 686 on the money line. Again, few games pending with those late results, but the underdogs since the All-Star break hitting at over 50%. If you look at just the last 7 days, 48 and 43 on the money line, and in the last 7 days, 44 unders to 39 overs. That's a 53% hit rate to the under. So that's what we're seeing in baseball right now, and that's what we're all getting trend-wise. Coming up next, how about if we do chat with our good friend Mid-Major Matt, aka Matt Josephs, to talk a little bit about how he's gauging the trade deadline, how he's playing props, and so much more right here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the Beats and Family Podcast.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
We're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the Beats and Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this man, as we've got Matt Josephs, aka Mid-Major Matt, joining me, as he does such an excellent job taking a look at this great game of baseball. He's over at the Prop Queen website. He's over at ESPN Radio's Richmond affiliate doing the show Border over there, and so much more. You're able to follow him on the old Twitter/X at Mid-Major Matt all together. And Matt, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much.
No problem. Glad to talk to you as we get closer and closer to the trade deadline.
Absolutely. And how do you take a look at this time of year from a props perspective? Because we've got a lot of guys that are expected to make starts that might not be doing so, and we've got a lot of guys that might actually get traded in the middle of the game. We have seen that before as well, and it makes it, in my opinion, just such an interesting ordeal in general.
You're kind of looking at some teams that you know are going to be sellers, and maybe their lineups are going to be slightly worse at the time. Colorado's lineup wasn't very good, and then Ryan McMahon gets traded, and you have to downgrade a little bit. So you kind of look at the teams who you definitely know are going to sell and who in their lineup they might sell. And if you think that maybe it's going to happen during the game, maybe factor it in slightly into your handicap. I mean, also, we're kind of watching Suarez from Arizona. He's a guy that strikes out a little bit. I know his K rate has improved from the past, but, if you're playing a K prop over, you're hoping that Suarez potentially is in the lineup, and who knows, maybe he gets traded in the middle of the game. So you're kind of trying to figure out, who might be in the lineup and who might not be for any given game.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that is always interesting to look at, because when it comes to the lineups itself, I think that is a little bit different than taking a look at the pitchers, because when you get a starting pitcher getting traded, then it throws everything into chaos, and then you just get a big giant load of hoopla.
Yeah, and a lot of the books won't, especially if the trade happens close to the game, a lot of the books won't put up the new starting pitcher, so you won't even have to worry about that. And that's why we always do, or at least we used to do, when I used to bet full games and stuff like that, I would always make sure that I would click the thing that says I want this guy starting, because if this other guy starts, he may not be as good, and then I don't like my bet. So therefore, that's why we always do to make sure so-and-so is starting, because it kind of affects how you handicap a game.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that is so critical to be doing moving forward. If you're one of the people that plays action, well, if you're playing action against a guy that might be moved, that might not be the world's worst look. But if you're looking to back someone on a team that might be making some moves, you want to be double sure that that guy is actually starting. It's Matt Josephs, aka Mid-Major Matt, is joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show. And obviously, you talked about Arizona with the fact that Eugenio Suarez, who knows, maybe by the time that this podcast posts, he might have been already dealt by them. But how do you take a look at a team like the Arizona Diamondbacks and some of these sellers the next few days? Because I think that's so interesting to try to handicap them.
Well, that's the beauty and the curse of the third wild card, is that basically you have teams who think they're in it and they're kidding themselves, and then you have teams who aren't in it but could probably make a trade and buy a little bit. Arizona's got some talent. It's just there's been some injury issues and things like that. Their starting pitching hasn't been very good. My goodness, Zach Gallen has not been very good so far this season. It feels like, especially as of late, his last start he didn't look great in Pittsburgh. So there's been some disappointments here, and it kind of shows you that maybe a team like that shouldn't go full sale, because it could be just a 1-year thing. Next year they're going to be a lot better. That's the same thing I think of for the Atlanta Braves. I would rather not see the Braves trade in Austin Riley and Ozzie Albies and Michael Harris or things like that. I don't think they will, but there had been at one point rumors that maybe they were considering it. Teams like Atlanta and Arizona, maybe it wasn't their year, but next year they'll be completely better. So we'll see how some of these teams feel. The Marlins, they don't necessarily have to trade Edward Cabrera unless they get overwhelmed by somebody, but he's a nice building block, considering who knows how long they'll have Alcantara either past this trade deadline or past the season.
Yep, I think that is such a good point. And with Alcantara, who knows if they're going to be dealing him within the next few days or not, because I do think that it is interesting to look at some of these guys that might be getting moved, like Sandy Alcantara, Luis Robert, Zach Gallen. There's a lot of guys that have really struggled this year that are rumored to perhaps being traded. And how do you take a look at some of these guys that have really struggled? And is it a case where perhaps a change of scenery is going to do them some good, or do you just trust in what a guy like Sandy Alcantara has done this season?
It's a case-by-case basis. I think Sandy will do a little bit better in other places. I think, he's the typical guy coming off of major surgery. I mean, he's struggling a little bit. Maybe there were some games where he pitched okay and didn't get enough run support, and so maybe in that case, it helps him to be on a different team. But I just feel like, Luis Robert is going to be injured, potentially an injury risk no matter where he is. It's not like all of a sudden if he gets into the fresh air of New York or Philadelphia, like he's not going to all of a sudden not be an injury risk. Not saying that the air isn't fresh in Chicago, but you know what I mean? Like a new clubhouse and everything like that. It's a case-by-case basis. You don't all of a sudden not become an injury risk by going somewhere else. Robert, we know how talented he is, but he's just got to stay healthy.
Yep, absolutely. And for Luis Robert, it's just been a miserable season for him, to say the least. So that has been a little bit unfortunate to take a look at, and we'll see if he's able to tick it up moving forward. And I do think that there are just some interesting teams in general that they're sort of on the borderline. Like, you've got a lot of 500 teams out there in the American League. The Royals actually picked up Randall Grichuk over the weekend, so I thought that was interesting. The St. Louis Cardinals are one of those interesting teams, the Cleveland Guardians. How do you take a look at teams like this that, as of the time of this recording, we don't know if they're going to be buyers or sellers, and they're right there on that border?
I mean, it's guessing time. It's the kind of time where you try and guess. I mean, this is where you can kind of get some value potential in somebody to make the playoffs. I mean, if you look at one of those teams that maybe is like 3 or 4 games back, and maybe you think they can make a push, like I think the Royals keeping Seth Lugo is so huge for their clubhouse. I mean, this is a team that traditionally never spent money, and like Lugo was rumored to be a guy that could have been on the block. Now, the Bubic news isn't very good. Obviously, a part of that rotation, and the rest of other pieces of the rotation aren't necessarily great. I mean, 97-year-old Rich Hill is in that rotation. But if the Royals get hot, who knows? The Red Sox were hot with that win streak before entering the break, and now they've kind of cooled off a little bit. But like one good hot streak in some of these tight races, you never know what could happen, and maybe that's when you strike and take some of these futures. If Arizona doesn't necessarily sell completely, maybe Arizona has a little bit of value to potentially make the playoffs. Now they have some work to do, but by not selling or even making small buys, you are telling your clubhouse that you believe in them, and that could bolster them the rest of the season.
Yep, absolutely. And we saw a team in the Tigers last year actually sell at the trade deadline and then make the playoffs after they traded away Jack Flaherty. And I always think that that's interesting to do as well. And then we saw a team a few years ago in the Angels in their last year under Shohei Ohtani, and they were right around 500. They bought at the deadline, and that obviously did not pan out as well. And I think that makes it so interesting for futures as well, because it does make the futures market very murky this time of year, whereas it becomes very clear after Thursday once the trade deadline clears up. And how would you encourage people to take a look at that right now? Because I do think that there's going to be a lot of overreactions when it comes to some of these moves.
There's at least one team who's not in the playoffs right now who will make the playoffs. I don't know who it is necessarily. Look, I've talked about this on your podcast and on Ariel's podcast and stuff like that. Like, I really like the Rays. Now, the Rays are not playing very well right now. I always have faith that their GM is going to make an under-the-radar trade, but don't forget, they also have Shane McClanahan that's, making rehab starts and potentially could come in and potentially be a factor for this season. So, you kind of have to take a look. The Guardians, if they don't trade Shane Bieber's kind of hanging around out there. Maybe he makes a couple of crucial starts. So, you always need to kind of remember the forgotten guys. Luis Gil, for the Yankees, he's going to be coming back soon. I know about all these guys because all three of those guys are sitting on my IL on my fantasy baseball team. But this is the time that you kind of look and make some projections here around the squads that are 5.5 out. I wouldn't say the Orioles, but here's the thing about the Orioles. Their offense is suddenly hot. And so if their offense can make up for some of their bad pitching, then that can make them part in the mix as well. So it's really just finding that team that might be on the outside, that might have a guy coming off the IL that can help out and push them in, and finding the team who they're going to knock out instead.
And I think with the Orioles, that's an interesting example because I just can't see them making the playoffs, being 8.5 games out of the wild card going into Monday. I think that would be a little bit too far, but how much would you rather, instead of playing like a feature on them, just bet them game to game and have them be a spoiler? Because we see every single year there's one or two of those teams. I think it was the Nationals a year or two ago that was that. Heck, the Tigers, even when they didn't make the postseason last year, a few years ago, they were a team that got hot in the second half of the year. And there's always those fascinating teams that they just provide a lot of bang for your buck when you don't expect them to.
Well, and then there's also the books that constantly put out the win totals for the season. They just constantly update them. You could also take advantage of that market in terms of if you do like the Orioles to suddenly continue to play well and you don't think they're going to make the playoffs, you can go find their win total in the futures market if a book has it and maybe take the over there. As I said, I think the Orioles lineup is really good, and I think they're finally hitting like they're supposed to. It just is very late considering how far out they are. So, taking advantage of some of these futures and stuff like that, I think the books put out a lot of markets because they feel like that the people aren't going to pay attention to them, or they're just not going to be able to go and look at everything. That's why I feel like, a guy like me who plays a little bit of everything when it comes to the pitchers props, I swear, they can't get everything right. And so when you look at these futures markets, and if they put out 17 different markets for 17 different things, not all of them are going to be correct. It's just finding the patience and taking the time, going over injury lists and things like that, and seeing who's still to come that could make a big deal to somebody's roster.
Absolutely. I think that that's so well said by you. And I do want to ask you about this as well, because you were bringing it up. Has there been any different markets than what you typically play in the past that you've been playing a little bit more either this year or just recently over the last few months that you've been finding a little bit of profit on that maybe wasn't as widely available in the past?
So I've found that I've played less K props as of late. I'm still playing them, a couple of them here and there, but The outs market, I used to just be solely an over guy, but now I'm starting to notice like unders. And, there's some people that I think I'll go to Monday. Zach Eflin against the Toronto Blue Jays, a guy that has traditionally gone longer, but has not pitched well, making his second start off the IL. His number was 17.5. I took the under. He didn't make it. And so like as a guy who traditionally looks at the over, I kind of have to train my brain to like look at unders. So I'm looking at that. I have not played the hits market, pitcher hits allowed, because every time I play an over, that pitcher suddenly loses control and has more walks than hits. But like, the earned runs allowed thing, I've started to kind of look at the earned runs allowed market. And what I've kind of done is if there's a pitcher that I want to play the over, whether it's 1.5 or 2.5, instead of doing that, I look at the first 5 run total. Because what happens if that pitcher gives up 4 runs and all of them are unearned? Then you lose the bet on the earned runs allowed, but you win your first 5 team total. So I've kind of learned how to play and bend the markets to the ways that I want to and try and find some value, because once again, I think the books can't get every single prop bet right.
Nope, I don't think anyone can, even for as great as these bookmakers are, because, obviously they don't build these lovely buildings out here in lovely Las Vegas, Atlantic City, what have you, based on being bad at their jobs. But at the same time, too, when you've got that many offerings, you're bound to slip up here and there. And typically, they're on the smaller ones rather than the more mainstream ones. But a man that does a great job will be able to find these edges, a man that is hard at work. Taking a look at this amazing game of baseball is you, Matt. And I know you're hard at work getting stuff for the upcoming college football season as well. So we'll have to give people at home know it's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, at Mid-Major Matt on Twitter. I've been releasing some of my win totals. I'll be releasing some more for college football. 24, 14, and 1 posted Twitter totals, so everybody can check it. I'm not lying about anything or making up my record or anything like that. But yeah, every day I post my props that I play. It's tracked on the Action Network, slightly up on the season. I'm more of a smaller unit better than others, but we're just trying to find some places to take advantage of some things. And as always, I know you get questions about first threes, first fives, pitchers, whatever. Certainly, I'm here to answer those questions at Mid-Major Matt, because we all have the same goal. We all want to beat the books, and we all want to have lots of money for when college basketball comes around in a couple months.
Absolutely. And Matt, he does such an incredible job taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball. And mentioned college basketball. That's going to be here sooner rather than later. So a big thanks to Matt for joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the Beast and Family Podcast. And coming next, it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Wednesday as we touch them all.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the Beast and Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by Matt Josephs, better known as Mid-Major Matt. He does a great job taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights, and he did so once again today. So big thanks to Matt for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Wednesday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at @GUnit_81, and we're going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first, then the American League games, any interleague games. Those are going to be at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. So, but if we get things started with 9:51, 9:52 on the card, it is the Chicago Cubs on the road against the Milwaukee Brewers as Shota Imanaga is on the bump for the Cubs and Freddie Peralta is on the bump for the Crew, and the Brewers, who find themselves between -115 to -125 favorites, are between a +101 to a +105. That number on the Cubs with 7.5 being the total. Over is between -110 to a -115. Under is between -105 to a -110. And with the Brewers, I did set them on the money line at a -132. I am going to be willing to lay this number for Shota Imanaga. He's just been doing for a lot of regression. We saw that in his last start against the Chicago White Sox. He gives up 7 runs against an offense as well, not necessarily that great. Overall for his season, owns a 3.12 ERA, but he's getting less than 7 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's giving up 1.6 home runs per 9 innings. The walks are down, but I mean, man, that's a little bit of a rough situation there. And we have noticed that the Chicago Cubs have been regressing with their bullpen. If you look since June 1st, this is a Cubs unit that is actually in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. This after you had so many guys come from out of nowhere: Brian Brazier, Caleb Fieldbar, Danny Palencia, Drew Pomerantz. All these guys give you a sub 350 ERA. We've noticed the likes of Chris Flexen and Brad Keller start to act up for this team a little bit. Now, what you've got for the Cubs is a top 4 offense in terms of runs per game. Just so many guys are able to club the ball. Pete Crow Armstrong, Seiya Suzuki, both had 26 plus home runs. For Crow Armstrong, think about a 267 overall for the season. Then you've got Kyle Tucker give you 18 home runs at a 386 on base. Michael Busch, 20 bombs, 367 on base. So plenty of guys move line. At Carson Kelly, 370 on base. He's been getting a home run every about 17 to 18 at bats. And then even though he doesn't necessarily hit for power, you've got Nico Horner doing a nice job finding a way to be a move line and get on base. And for the Milwaukee Brewers, this team has actually been one of the worst in all baseball in terms of being able to slug out home runs. They are in the bottom 7 in the big leagues in terms of home runs on a per at-bat basis. You do have Christian Yelich, who's been able to give you 20 home runs, and he's now supplying a 333 on base. Jackson Trio's up to 17 home runs, and he's hitting now 275, so I mean, credit to him. But really, the lone other guy on the roster who's been able to give you over 8 home runs is Rhys Hoskins, and he's currently on the injured list. Now, you've got a lot of guys that do a nice job in terms of being able to swipe some bags. Sal Frelick, Trio, Yelich, who I mentioned before, along with Bryce Terang. All these guys are up to at least 15 stolen bases, so the Brewers do a really good job of playing small ball, and they just find a way to get on base. You've got some like a Caleb Durbin giving you a 340 on base. Same goes for William Contreras. And for the Brewers, this bullpen is in the top 5 in terms of ERA. Since June 1st, you've had a lot of mix and match guys that have really been able to come through for this team, likes of Aaron Ashby, throw in there Trevor McGill, Nick Mears, Grant Anderson, whole bunch of guys that are giving you a sub 325 ERA. Abner Uribe has been rock solid. So for the Brewers, I do think that they get the job done, even though Freddie Peralta is doing for a bit of regression himself. The 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings that he's getting is typically really good for a pitcher, but that's actually a career low for him. He has given up a home run, a little bit over 3 walks per 9 innings, so fielding dependent is a little bit higher than that of his ERA, but still do think that the Brewers get the job done here. I'm willing to lay up to a minus 132 on that money line, and with this total, I am in on the over, semi-total at 8.3. 953, 954 on the betting board. It is the Pittsburgh Pirates on the road against the San Francisco Giants. Logan Webb goes for the Giants, and Mike Burrows goes for the Buccos, and the Pirates are between plus 180 to plus 190 dogs. Minus 210 to minus 227 is that number on San Francisco. 7.5 is the total. Over and under both at minus 110. And with San Francisco, I made them a minus 243 favorite on the money line. You have to go to FanDuel to find the initial opener for the run line, so these are always subject to a little bit of change. But as I said, right now, finding that at a plus 102 and sign me up on that run line, I was willing to go up to a minus 115 in terms of the run line. And with Logan Webb, he's been able to do just such a masterful job when he has been at home, really all throughout his career. For Logan Webb, he's been able to put it together both at home and on the road this season. We'll say that he acted up a little bit in his last start, did give up quite a few runs there, but still overall for the season, he's supplying a 338 ERA, 9.6 strikeouts at 2 walks per 9 innings, a 265 fielding pennant, 3 plus runs allowed in 4 of his last 5 starts. Certainly has been a little bit less than amazing, but again, you go back since the beginning of his career in 2019, for Logan Webb at home, he has been dominant with a 279 ERA, giving up less than a half home run per 9 innings. On the road, he's still only giving up like 0.8 home runs per 9 innings, but that does shoot up to a 405 ERA. And he is backed up by a bullpen that has been experiencing a little bit of regression recently, but it's still a Giants team that's number 2 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. They did have to put Eric Miller on the injured list, so that does hurt them a little bit, but the likes of Tyler Rogers, Camilo Doval has acted up a little bit, but still, Camilo Doval, Randy Rodriguez, Joey Lucchesi, all give you below a 335 in terms of their ERA. And for the San Francisco Giants, really what has been ailing them has been the offense, as Rafael Devers below a 355 on base since he got to San Francisco. Only 4 home runs in 32 plus games, with one of those being a multi-home run game, so he's only went deep in like 3 games that he's actually played in, so that's been a little bit of an issue. Starting to get a little bit of production out of a few other guys though. Eloy Ramos, Matt Chapman, Willie Adames, a combined 45 home runs between the 3 of these guys. And for Willie Adames, over the last 3 days, he's been giving you a home run every less than 12 at-bats. He's been hitting nearly a 300, so that's been a sign of things in the right direction. Ramos has given you about a 340 on base base. Wilmer Flores has been a little bit hit or miss, 12 home runs, hasn't necessarily cranked out the deep ball recently. He and Jung-Ho Lee both in that neighborhood about a 250, and then Tyler Fitzgerald, Patrick Bailey at the bottom just have not given you too much. But for the Buccos, this team is dead last in all of baseball in terms of runs per game. You finally have a fourth guy on the team who has more than 4 home runs. Nick Gonzalez is up to 5. Yay, verily there. But Andrew McCutchen, Brian Reynolds, 10 home runs apiece. Oneil Cruz, 17 home runs, and that's about it in terms of power. And you don't have a lot of guys that are doing a very good job of moving the line and getting on base. Cruz, I mentioned before, Henry Davis, Alexander Canario, Jared Trollo. So many guys that are hitting at 222 or lower. You're just getting absolutely no production out of them whatsoever. And I do think that for the Pittsburgh Pirates, the bullpen is going to be relatively solid for them. David Benar has been much better here in the, shall we say, middle part of the season. He, Dennis Santana, Braxton Ashcraft have all been able to give you an ERA below 250. You've been able to get some solid innings out of Caleb Ferguson, though he's starting to act up a little bit. His ERA has ballooned up to a 375, but I do take a look at this spot, and I do think that for the Giants, they're going to be able to get a great start out of Logan Webb, and Mike Burrows has been able to come on pretty strong as well. Burrows was a strikeout artist at the minor league level, and he has had a little bit of a tough time giving up hard contact here at the big league level, but pitching out there in San Francisco should be able to help him out. He's given up 1.4 home runs, 3.5 walks per 9 innings, but 4.15 ERA. He's had a sub 350 ERA ever since his first restarts of his career as well, so he's been honing in 2 runs of fear allowed in 4 of his last 5 appearances. So circumstance where I'm going to be in on this total under. I did set my total at a 7.3, and for the Giants, I'm going to be willing to lay the run line. I'm willing to go up to a minus 115. 955, 956 on the card. The New York Mets are on the road against the Slam Diego Padres. Yu Darvish is on the bump for the Pods, and Clay Holmes goes for the Mets. Mets are between minus 119 to minus 126 favorites. Even money to plus 109. That number on the Padres. 8.5 is the total. Over and under both at minus 110, and I'm going to be willing to take a shot here on the Padres. I set them at a minus 102. Now, Yu Darvish has not been good since coming back to the big league level. Like, man, this is not great. He wasn't even good in his 1 or 2 minor league rehab appearances either, so, it is a little bit of a dice roll here, but I believe that Yu Darvish is going to be able to hone in, and it's going to be able to find a little bit more. 5.3 strikeouts to 4.9 walks per 9 innings in his 4 starts thus far, 9.18 ERA. I just have to believe that he's going to be a little bit better than this, and perhaps his minor league rehab appearances were rushed just a little bit, so that's something I'm taking a look at. He did give up 8 runs in his last start against St. Louis, which obviously that was a little bit less than tremendous, but he does go up against a New York Mets team that has been very top-heavy with their offense, and for the Mets, they're about a league average team in terms of runs per game away from home. You've obviously had a quartet of guys, Brandon Nimmo, Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, Juan Soto, all being able to give you at least 19 home runs. These guys have been absolutely amazing for the team, but when you have a lot of guys like Tyrone Taylor, I recognize that he's been better recently and had a grand slam. Mark Vientos, the entirety of the catcher spot, hitting a 235 or lower, that does hamper things a little bit, and other than that grand slam, Vientos has not necessarily been able to give you a world boatload of power either, so that's been a little bit rough for them. And then for the New York Mets, it is a bullpen that has been acting up a little bit, bottom 15 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA since June 1st. You do have quite a few solid arms out there, like Jose Buto just comes off the injury list. He, Reed Garrett, Chris Savinsky, all below a 3 ERA. Obviously, Edwin Diaz has been solid, but when you have the likes of Ryan Stanek and company just blowing games, that makes things a little bit less than amazing. And Clay Holmes, even though he's got a 3.40 ERA, he is doing for a lot of regression. His swing and miss stuff just has not been there thus far this season for Holmes. He's only getting 7 strikeouts per 9 innings, and he has been allowing quite a few free passes as well. He is up to about 3.5 walks per 9 innings. He is only giving up 1 home run per 9 innings, but still a 4.14 fielding dependent. He has given up at least 5 runs in 2 out of his last 4 starts as well, so you do have to have a bit of caution there. And for the San Diego Padres, this is a number 1 unit in terms of bullpen ERA this season, even with having a few blown saves from Robert Suarez recently. You've got likes of David Morgan, Adrian Morejon being able to give you a sub 275 ERA. You've had really good production of Jeremiah Estrada. Even Wandy Peralta is starting to come on for the team, and for the Padres, a big key for this team being able to get a little bit more offense, as Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis Jr. combined 36 home runs, both above a 360 on base entering into Tuesday. And then you have Gavin Sheets, who's been been able to give you 14 home runs, but this team is in the bottom 5 in terms of home runs on a per at-bat basis. Luis Rice is starting to find it a bit more. He's hitting for about a 290, but you just need a bit more out of Jose Iglesias, Jake Cronenworth, those infielders hitting below a 245 with not necessarily a ton of power. And then when it comes to the catcher spot, you've gotten absolutely no production there. They were banking on having Jason Hayward give the team some production. That never really happened either. They had to DFA him, so interesting spot here. Somebody told it at 8.3. I like the under, and for the Padres, made them a minus 102, so I'm going to be looking at them on the money line. 957, 958 on the card. The LA Dodgers are on the road against the Cincinnati Reds, and yes, we're on to Cincinnati, who's on to Nick Martinez getting the start for them, and Shohei Ohtani is on the bump for the Dodgers. Dodgers minus 165 to minus 176 favorites, plus 143 to a plus 150. That number on Cincinnati. 9.5 is the total. Over and under both at minus 110, and for Shohei Ohtani, I can only set him at a minus 146, so I'm going to be looking at that Reds money line. Shohei Ohtani is starting to give you now 3 innings. They might let him go a 4th inning in this one. They're trying to be able to stretch him out, so he is starting to be able to give you just a little bit more length there. And Shohei Ohtani, the pitcher, has actually been quite solid for this unit, as he's one of the few guys that has been a $1.50 ERA in his 6 starts. Problem is, he's only won 12 innings, so you need a little bit more length there. But you know what? He's starting to be able to give you a bit of something, and you do love to see that, and it is very critical that he gives them that 4th inning, because this is an LA Dodgers team that is ranking in the bottom 10 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. Jack Dreyer has actually been pretty solid in this bullpen. He and Alex Vesia have been able to supply a sub-345 ERA, but you just don't have a lot of reliability out of the guys that you thought were going to be pretty rock solid this season, as you've had Kirby Yates posting up an ERA that is above a 4, Tanner Scott is above a 4, Anthony Banda has not necessarily been too amazing either, so you've got a lot of guys that have been underperforming thus far this season in the bullpen. But for the Dodgers, you obviously have a top 5 unit in terms of runs per game. Ohtani, who I mentioned before, he also does it at the plate. 380 on base, 38 home runs, and Andy Paz, he's been able to supply 19 home runs. He's really been a nice find for this team. He's been hitting for about a 280 overall for the season. Teoscar Hernandez isn't it for a lot of average, but he has been able to supply you with those 16 home runs, so you do like to be able to see that. Will Smith continues to get jiggy with it. He's been able to give you about a 425 or so. With regards to his on base, they've been resting him a little bit the last few days, but I do think that he's going to be able to give you some good performance. And then for the Cincinnati Reds, this unit has been able to get a little bit more production out of the just middle of the lineup, as you've had Ellie De La Cruz obviously be amazing this season, 18 home runs, above a 360 on base with 29 stolen bases, but now you've got Spencer Steer hitting a little bit above a 240. He's starting to give you a bit more power. TJ Friedel, a 370 on base. Gavin Lux, more in that neighborhood, about a 355 on base. Jose Trevino, when he's been out there, has been able to about a 260, so you do have these guys giving you some better at-bats. I do think that Navali Marte coming back, along with Austin Hayes, we have guys hitting at least a 275, and for Hayes, home run every about 21 or so at-bats. That is a big key for this team, as the Reds, they're about a league average bullpen. You've had Emilio Pagan give up the deep ball, but he's been able to keep things out in front of him. He, Tony Santillan, and Taylor Rogers all below a 3 ERA, and I do think that for the Reds, they're getting dogged a little bit here. Now, recognize that our good friend Nick Martinez has been posting up an ERA that is well above a 4, but he does a nice job of not beating himself. For Nick Martinez, he's only giving up about 2 walks per 9 innings, so I do think that he's going to be able to do a nice job of just being able to be judicious with his pitch count, being able to keep things out in front of him. He is giving up only about 1 home run per 9 innings as well, so he's got a 410 fielding dependent with that 469 ERA, with 2 runs or fewer allowed in each out of his last 3 starts. So did set the Reds at a plus 146. We'll take plus 147 or higher on that money line, and me and my total 9.4. I like the 9.5 under. 959, 960 on the card. The Miami Marlins are on the road against the St. Louis Cardinals, as you got Miles Mikolas on the bump for the Cards, and Cal Quantrill is on the bump for the Fish. And the Fish are an underdog of anywhere between plus 118 to a plus 125, minus 135 to a minus 150 is center on St. Louis. 8.5 is the total. The over is minus 120, and the under is even. And with Miles Mikolas and company, I am going to be willing to lay it. I set the Cardinals at a minus 148. Miles Mikolas, without question, is giving up a lot of contact, but you could say the same for Cal Quantrill. Even though Cal Quantrill has had a few games where he's been able to generate some swing and miss, overall for the season, Quantrill is giving you a ERA that is hovering right around 5, and not necessarily a lot of bang for your buck in terms of the strikeout department, as he's posting up 7.2 strikeouts at 2.3 walks per 9 innings, 5.05 ERA, closer to a 4.22 fielding dependent, and he has given up 2 earned runs or fewer in 4 of his last 5 starts. Meanwhile, for old Mr. Miles Mikolas, was. He has been posting up a 4.94 ERA. Doesn't give up a lot of walks, 2 walks per 9 innings, which is actually up from his career numbers. But again, a guy that's going to pitch you a lot of contact, 6.2 strikeouts per 9 innings, and he's been giving up a lot more hard contact this season with about 1.5 home runs allowed per 9 innings. He is backed up by a bullpen that has been quite a bit better this season, as for Jojo Romero, Ryan Elsley, Ryan O'Brien, these guys are giving you an ERA below 3. Matt Savancin has been pretty solid, and for the Miami Marlins, all of a sudden this team is in the top 5 in terms of their bullpen ERA, as you've had so many guys like Kay Gibson, Tyler Phillips, Lake Bakar, Anthony Bender, all give you a sub 350 ERA. Ronnie Enriquez has been solid as well, and then you've been able to get the Miami Marlins to really click with their offense away from home. At home, they're actually dead last in the National League with less than 3.7 runs per game, but closer to about 4.9 runs per game when they are away from home, as Kyle Stowers has been the main catalyst for this. 380 on base. He is right now giving you 23 home runs. Augustin Ramirez is up to 15 bombs. He's only hitting about a 240, and Connor Norby is hitting about a 240 as well. You do have quite a few different guys are hitting, and then Abraham about a 262, 265. Dane Myers is actually down to a 255, so we've seen some progression there, but Liam Hicks has been able to give you about a 355 on base. Roberto Hernandez, the young gun, has actually been very good for the team. 5 home runs at his first 100 at bats, hitting above a 300. Love to be able to see that. And Xavier Edwards at the top, he's hitting for about a 290 overall. And I do think that with the Miami Marlins, the bullpen is going to be solid. I just have all sorts of question marks with Cal Quantrill, and both of these guys just give up a lot of general contact. So I'm in on the over, I tell it at 8.9. And with the Cards up to a minus 147 is what I'm willing to lay on that money line. 961, 962 on the card. The Toronto Blue Jays are on the road against the Baltimore Orioles. Dean Kramer goes for the O's, and Jose Barrios is on the bump for the Jays. The total on this game is 9.5. The over is minus 120, and the under is even. And for the Jays, they are between even money to minus 105, between minus 109 to a minus 115 is that number on Baltimore. And I thought the Blue Jays at a minus 121. I'm going to be willing to lay their money line / take them as a plus number on the money line. For Barrios throughout his career, he's always been a much better pitcher at home rather than on the road, but he's had a reverse split this year, as for Mr. Barrios, 3.83 ERA overall for the season. Not necessarily blowing you away with the strikeout stuff, as he's below 8 strikeouts per 9 innings, but has been able to do a nice job just being able to mitigate hard contact, and this has gone down to about a 3.30 ERA when he is on the road. He does have a little bit above a 4-field dependence, so do have to have a little bit of caution there. And then with Dean Kramer, 4.23 ERA, 1.2 home runs allowed per 9 innings, and even though home runs per 9 rate stays right around about 1.2 when he's at home, that goes down to about a 2.65 ERA. So you've got Barrios, who's been better on the road. You've got Dean Kramer, who's very much feasted on being at home. So I do think that that's a good setup for an under. I did I told it an 8.6, so going to be looking there, even though you do have an Orioles bullpen that has been all sorts of rough. They traded away Gregory Soto. I don't really think that that's a downgrade for them, but I mean, you've got so many guys like a Kyle Stout, Andrew Kittredge, Yenier Cano, guys that just have not come through. They've been posting up above a 3.60 ERA. Obviously had to use up quite a few pieces with the double dip yesterday. Both of these teams had to do so, but overall for the season, entering into that double dip, Orioles 25th in the big leagues with a 4.69 ERA, and then you've got a Blue Jays team that they entered with a ERA that was in the top 7. Now you had quite a few runs given up by the lesser guys yesterday, but the top guys have still been solid. Brandon Little, Braden Fisher, give you a sub 3 ERA. Uriel Rodriguez has been one of those good long guys as well. And for the Blue Jays, they are averaging about 4.1 runs per game when they're away from home. At home, this goes up to about 5.35 runs per game. So they have been a team that has been suffering a little bit with their offense away from home, but a lot of this was just because their offense wasn't as good towards the earlier part of the season. Now they're really starting to improve. George Springer up to 18 home runs, about a 380 on base. Bo Bichette, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Alejandro Kirk owing at least a 290. In the case of Guerrero, 399 on base, 15 home runs. Bichette is up to 13 home runs. You've been able to get some good production out of Nathaniel Lukes, give you about a 345 on base as well. And for the Baltimore Orioles, this team is averaging over 4.8 runs per game when they're at home. Away from home, they have been in the bottom 5 in all baseball in terms of runs per game. So certainly a team that has been much better when they have been in their friendly confines, as your main home run hitter this year has been actually Ramon Laureano. He and Cedric Mullins both up to 15 home runs apiece. Mullins does not give you really too much average whatsoever, but you've been able to have Ramon Laureano be able to hit for above a 265, and he's been able to give you about a 350 on base. Jackson Holliday has been able to supply 14 home runs. Gunnar Henderson, he's up to hitting above a 275, and he's been able to supply 12 home runs. So you've got a lot of guys move the line. Ryan O'Hearn as well, and ever since Jordan Westburg has come off the injured list, he's been able to give you a home run about 20 at-bats. He's been able to give you about a 270 average as well. So these guys have been pretty rock solid, but in the end, I do think that Barrios is going to be able to give you a relatively solid start, and I do think that the bullpen going to be a big factor here. Set my line at a minus 121. I like the Blue Jays on the money line, and here at the 9.5, I'm in on the under. 963, 964 on the card. The Minnesota Twins are playing against the Boston Red Sox. Brian Bayo goes for the Sox, and for the Twins, we are expecting Bailey Ober, but he is currently on the injured list. He needs to be activated, so this game is presently off the board. But if you do get Mr. Ober going up against Brian Bayo, it is a circumstance where I did set the Minnesota Twins as the slightest of slight favorites, as I did make them a minus 103 on the money line, so plus 104 or higher. Looking at the Red Sox, minus 102 or better. Looking at the Twins, and then I made a total to where in 8.5 or less, I'm going to be in on the over, a 9 or higher, the under. So pretty much whichever team is going to be the underdog and getting plus money, that's what I'm going to be taking. That's layman's terms on this one because it's such a tight line. But that said, for the Boston Red Sox, you've had Wilder Abreu really while out for this offense. He's been supplying 20 home runs. He has been amazing ever since the Rafael Devers trade. And you've had Trevor Story step up. He and Ceddanne Rafaela, even though they don't necessarily give you a ton in terms of on base, they combined 29 home runs. These two guys, you get Alex Bregman off the injured list. He's able to give you a little bit more average, hitting at 300 with his 14 home runs. And then the mix and match guys, Roman Anthony is up to nearly a 400 on base. Not a ton of power, but he's doing a good job finding a way on base. Rami Gonzalez, Abraham Toro, Rob Refsnyder, all these guys are at least a 270, so that's been very encouraging. And what else has been very big for the Boston Red Sox has been this bullpen just stepping up the way that they have. A top 8 unit with regards to ERA. Jordan Hicks did blow that game a few days ago, but overall you've had Chris Murphy, Brendan Bernardino, Garrett Whitlock, Aroldis Chapman, the closer, who's been giving you a 130 ERA. They're all below a 325 in terms of their ERA. A lot of guys are able to mix and match, give you multiple innings. Craig Weissert has been solid as well. And for the Minnesota Twins, this is a bottom 10 team in all of baseball in terms of their bullpen ERA, but the top guys have been very good, as you've had Yohan Duran, Danny Kalum, Louis Varland all be able to supply a sub-250 ERA. You've been able to get some good production as well out of a few more of these mix and match guys. The guy that I really like is Brock Stewart, who's been able to give you a sub-275 ERA, but then when you get into the likes of Griffin Jacks, Justin Topa and company, that's where things go to die a little bit more in this bullpen. But that said, you've had Byron Buxton really step up for this offense. Buxton is up to 23 home runs, over a 340 on base, and then you've been able to get a lot of guys to be able to supply 12 to 13 home runs. Harrison Bader, Matt Wallner, Cody Clemens, Trevor Larnach, and most of these guys not necessarily hitting for a ton of average. Obviously, you've had a rough go of it for Cody Clemens, hitting less than a 230, and it has been a very, very rough season for Matt Wallner, who's only been able to about a 206, but Ty France is back up to hitting about a 250. Brooks Lee is in that neighborhood as well. Willie Castro, lots of guys in this lineup just sitting in that neighborhood about a 250. I do think that Bailey Ober is going to be able to come off the injured list, and he's going to be able to be relatively solid for this unit, as for Ober, his swing and miss stuff this season has been way down, as he's only been able to give you in that neighborhood about 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. And if you get a bullpen game, I will be setting the Red Sox as a favorite. I'd probably be setting them more around about a minus 125 to a minus 130 as a favorite. So just a little bit to be mindful of there. And for Ober, 5.28 ERA for the season, 2.1 home runs allowed per 9 innings. Hasn't made a start since really June 28th. So this would be about a full 30 days that he spent on the injured list. But that said, I do think that if Ober comes back, he should be a relatively good pick-em price against a guy in Brian Bayo, who's been very good in terms of being able to keep the ball in the yard and inducing soft contact for the Red Sox, but is not some sort of strikeout artist. He's only getting 7 strikeouts per 9 innings, 3 walks per 9, 3.32 ERA compared to a 4.25 Philly Pennant. He enters in very strong. He's been giving up 3 runs or fewer in each out of his last 5 starts, but I do think that reality is going to be setting in a little bit here in this one. I did set the total at an 8.7, so 8.5 or less is going to be in on the over, a 9 or higher, the under. And for the Twins, I did set them on the money line at a minus 103, one way up to minus 102 there, plus 104 or better. We're going to be looking at the Boston Red Sox. 965, 966 on the board. It is the Rays on the road against the New York Yankees. Will Warren goes for the Yanks, and it is Mr. Zach Little open to come up big for the Rays. The Rays are anywhere between a plus 118 to a plus 122 underdog, minus 130 to minus 144. The number on the Yankees sign is the total. Under is minus 115, and the over is minus 105, and I'm going to be in on the over. So I told 9.3. No doubt the Aaron Judge injury does make things a little bit more murky for the New York Yankees, but you still have plenty of firepower in this lineup, even with Paul Goldschmidt really starting to have some bad regression. Ever since the beginning of the month of June, he's been hardly giving you above a 300 on base, just is not giving you a lot of power whatsoever, but you still have plenty of guys that are at 15 or more home runs this season. Ben Rice, Austin Wells have not really been hitting for a lot of average, but Jazz Chisholm is up to about a 340 on base. You've had Cody Bellinger give you 19 home runs. You've had Trent Grisham continue to give you 17 bombs, so I think these guys have been able to step up. You pick up Ryan McMahon, Ahmed Rosario. Those are going to be guys that platoon against righties and lefties. That helps out the infield quite a bit. The big concern that you've got for this New York Yankees bunch is the bullpen, as this has been a bullpen that has been leaking some oil recently, especially with Luke Weaver not looking like himself coming off the injured list, Yuri De Los Santos hitting the injured list, and it's been a little bit less than savory. And then you've got the likes of Ian Hamilton, Mark Leiter Jr., Jonathan Loaizaga, Devin Williams, all these guys posting up above a 4.25 ERA. And for the Tampa Bay Rays, you don't have that sort of concern, as for the Tampa Bay Rays, always one of the best teams in terms of their bullpen in all of baseball. You've had so many guys like Eric Orze, Manuel Rodriguez, Pete Fairbanks, Garrett Clevenger, all being able to give you an ERA that is below a 3. You've also been able to get some good long relief out of Mason Englert recently as well. It's been a little bit of an up and down season for him, and for the Rays, it has been a little bit up and down in terms of this lineup as well, because you do currently have Brandon Lau on the injured list, 19 home runs this season, and him being out of the fold, that has been hurting this team, though there is a chance that he might be able to return for Wednesday, so be mindful there if he does. Probably not going to be 100%, but Jonathan Aranda has been able to give you about a 395 on base, and Junior Caminero, 27 home runs, doesn't necessarily draw a lot of walks, but he's certainly supplying that power. Yandy Diaz up to about a 345 on base with his 18 home runs is solid, and even though you don't get a lot out of Danny Walls, the catcher spot, they trade away Danny Jansen, which I don't think that's too big of an issue for you, but you've got Chandler Simpson and Jose Calabrillo. Combined 65 stolen bases between these two, both above a 325 on base. Now, Calabrillo only hitting about a 230, and then for Mr. Chandler Simpson, he's hitting above a 300, so he's been able to do a rock-solid job there. But I do think that for the Tampa Bay Rays, they're going to be able to do a solid job here of getting to Will Warren, who has been having his issues in terms of just giving up runs in general. But if you look at the advanced numbers for Will Warren, there should be quite a bit of positivity here. He has been generating more than 11 strikeouts per 9 innings, not really giving up a lot of homers, about 1 home run per 9 innings, 4.3 walks per 9. That's a bit of a concern, but 4.82 ERA compared to a 3.70 fielding dependent with 2 runs or fewer allowed in 3 out of his last 4 starts. And Zach Little does appear to be due in for quite a bit of regression, more than a little regression. 3.72 ERA, that fielding dependent is a 4.91 with 1.8 home runs allowed per 9 innings. Good news is he has good control, only about 1.2 walks per 9 innings, and he's given up 3 runs or fewer in 4 out of his last 5 starts, but do think that the Yankees get to him to be able to get the job done here, and did so by total at a 9.3. I'm in on the over and with the Yankees. Made them a minus 154 on the money line. If you're looking to lay run half right now, you're only finding that initial FanDuel opener, and those are always subject to quite a bit of, shall we say, murkiness and change, but right now you're getting about a plus 146 on that run line. I'd be looking at Yankees run line before the money line to go along with that over. 967, 968 on the card. The Walker Texas Rangers are on the road against the LA Angels, as Jose Soriano is on the bump for the Halos, and you've got Mr. Nathan Eovaldi on the bump for the Rangers. Rangers are a minus 126 to a minus 137 favorite, between plus 112 to a plus 120. The number on the Halos, 8 is the total. The over is minus 120, and the under is even. And for the Angels, I did make them a underdog in this ordeal of a plus 121. So being able to get about a plus 118 here, we need this to tick up about 3 more cents. But that said, I do think that when it's all said and done, I'm going to be able to buy in on the Halos on the money line for Jose Soriano. He's actually had really interesting home and road splits in which he's just been so much better when he has been on the road. He's only given up 1 home run in his road starts as far this season. That's more than 60 innings. So he's been able to do a nice job of inducing soft contact, and at home he's still been solid as well, giving up well less than a home run per 9 innings at home as well. Overall for the season, only getting about 7.7 strikeouts and 4.1 walks per 9 innings, but 3.79 ERA, closer to about a 3.57 feeling dependent with the soft contact that he is inducing. Do want to be mindful that he has been a little bit more rough when he has been at home rather than away from home, as his home ERA does shoot up to a 4.37, but I do think that this is going to iron out, and for Nathan Eovaldi, he has been quite masterful for the Texas Rangers this year. How about a 1.50 ERA with a fielding dependent of a 2.38, 9.5 strikeouts of 1.7 walks per 9 innings, and since coming off the injured list, he has just been a marvel. Over his last 4 starts, he has given up a combined 1 earned run, 2 runs in total. I do think that there's going to be a bit of regression to this. Now, with the LA Angels, this is a lineup that is a little bit all or nothing because you've got a bunch that is currently in the bottom 5 of the big leagues in terms of their on-base percentage at home, but a top 5 team in terms of home runs on a per at-bat basis. Taylor Ward has been absolutely incredible in terms of slugging out the deep ball. He is up to 25 home runs. He's been giving you now about a 308 on base. Now, Logo to Hoppy, 279 on base. You need that to take up a little bit, but he is giving you 18 home runs. And then you've had Mike Trout only hitting at 234, but at 360 on base, 19 home runs. Jorge Soler, even though he's got the 12 home runs, he's been having a little bit of a rough season. And Luis Renifo, 284 on base with 5 home runs. You just need a bit more there. The big caution that you have with the LA Angels is this bullpen, as you got so many guys that have not been able to get the job done, especially now that you've got Hunter Strickland currently dealing with an injury, because now you are having to rely upon a lot of guys that have an ERA that's well above a 4.25. Sam Bachman, Carson Fulmer, throwing their Connor Brogdon, Ryan Zephyrion. These guys have not been great, but you do have Kenley Jansen starting to round into form. He's down to about a 3 ERA. And then for the Texas Rangers, if you look since June 1st, this has been a top 2 unit in all baseball with regards to their bullpen ERA. A lot of guys firing all cylinders for this team, as you've been able to get sub 3 ERAs out of so many different places, as you've had that for Chris Martin, Holby Milner, Jacob Latz, who's been utilized a little bit more as a long guy, Robert Garcia, Sean Armstrong very close at about a 302. And for the Rangers, entering into this series, they were averaging about 5.9 runs per game in the month of July. I think that they might cool down a little bit from there, but Corey Seager over the last 30 days give you well above a 400 on base. You just have all of a sudden been able to get these guys that were struggling so much. Like, you've got Marcus Semien, Wyatt Langford, Adolis Garcia, Jake Berger, all overall for the season, give you between 11 to 14 home runs, hitting in that neighborhood of about a 225 to about a 235, we're going to call it. They've been able to step up here in the month of July, along Kyle Higashioka hitting a 360 here in the month of July. That's been very rock solid for you, and I do think that for Texas, they're going to be able to give you some good production there, but in the end, I do think that Soriano is going to be able to give you a relatively good start. I did set my total at an 8.3. Here at the 8, I do think that of all the experiences at regression, I'm in on the over, and anything above plus 120, take a shot on the Angels on the money line. 969, 970 on the card. The Athletics play OC Seattle Mariners. Brian Wu says woohoo to another start, and Jeffrey Springs is on the bump for the Athletics. 9.5 is the total. The over is minus 115. The under is minus 105. Seattle is a minus 140 to a minus 145 favorite. Plus 118 to a plus 131 is that number on the Athletics. And I did set the money line at a plus 137. So if we can tick up a few more pennies, I will be looking at the A's. So looking for a little bit of late night line movement here, and with the Athletics, if you're looking to get a run half with them, you're going to be getting a minus 130 there. To lay a run half with the Seattle Mariners, that's a plus 108. I would need to be getting closer to about a plus 118 with that Seattle Mariners run line, so it is a little bit TBD as to where I'm going to be landing there. But that said, when it comes to Brian Wu, he has been able to do a really good job in terms of command, and his strikeout stuff, it's solid. I'm not going to call it amazing for Brian Wu. Strikeouts per 9 rate is about an 8.6, but 1.7 walks allowed per 9 innings, 291 ERA compared to a 346 fielding independent. Comes in rolling relatively well. 2 runs or fewer allowed in 4 out of his last 5 starts. So like what I'm seeing there. And for Jeffrey Springs, he's been pitching quite a bit better at home recently. As for Jeffrey Springs, he comes in having allowed 3 runs or fewer in 4 out of his last 5 starts. Most of these pitchers out there in Sacramento just have had some very funky home and road splits. As for Springs, 4.27 home ERA to a 4.01 ERA on the road. And Springs has been giving up just under 2 home runs per 9 innings when he has been at home. So that's a little bit of an issue for you. But that said, with this A's team, the bigger issue is the bullpen, as Mason Miller is now below a 4 ERA, so hooray there. But just have a lot of guys that have come in and not done their part. Michael Kelly has been able to give you an ERA below a 350, and Jack Perkins has been relatively solid as well. But then you just have a lot of guys that have just gone out there and not done their part. Tyler Ferguson, Hogan Harris, throwing their Grant Holman, Osvaldo Bido, all above a 4 ERA. But the Athletics are getting really good production out of Nick Kurtz. Kurtz, a home run every about 11 at-bats, hitting above a 300. Had that 4 home run game about a week or so ago. He's been incredible. Tyler Soderstrom is up to about a 255, and he's been able to give you 19 home runs. Brent Rooker, a 350 on base with 21 bombs. So I think these guys have been able to do a nice job there. They've got guys that are able to platoon for righty-lefty splits. Now, bottom of the fold, these guys like Max Muncy, the other Max Muncy, JJ Bleday, Denzel Carter, you're going to need to get a little bit more production there, as the Miguel Andujar injury was a little bit rough, but they're getting getting him back as well. And then on the other side, it is a Seattle Mariners lineup that entered into the series averaging about 5.4 runs per game away from home. That leads the American League. Big dumper Cal Raleigh is up to 41 home runs. He's supplying an on-base percentage, hovering right around about a 370. Same goes for J.P. Crawford, not in terms of home runs, but in terms of the on-base percentage. And then Oriol Polanco, Julio Rodriguez, 34 home runs between these two guys, both hitting about a 250. And the top guys in the Seattle Mariners bullpen have been very good. Matt Brash, Andres Munoz, Gabe Spire, Edward Bizardo, all being able to give you a sub-3 ERA, and especially Brash and Munoz. Both of these guys have been below a 150 ERA. So I do think that this is an interesting circumstance. We could get down to about a minus 136. I'd be looking at Seattle on the money line, plus 138 or higher looking at the A's. So it's going to be based on late night line movement there. But we've been noticing that the runs have been flowing like wine out there in Sacramento. I set my total 9.9, so at the 9.5, I'm in on the over. 971, 972 on the card. The Arizona Diamondbacks are on the road against the Detroit Tigers, as it is Chris Paddock who goes for Detroit, and Ryan Nelson is on the bump for Arizona. And Arizona is a underdog of anywhere between a plus 112 to a plus 118, and you're going to be getting minus 130 to minus 137 on Detroit. Total on this game is 9. The over is even money, and the under is minus 120. And when it comes to this Detroit bunch, I did set them at a minus 132 on the money line, so being able to get a minus 130, I wouldn't want to lay anything more than that, but at a minus 130, I would be willing to buy in on that money line. For Chris Paddock, it's been a less than tremendous season for him with the Twins, and the big thing for Paddock is that he's just not really getting a lot of deception and a lot of swings and misses, as for Paddock, overall 4.95 ERA, backed up by a 4.40 fielding independent because he doesn't give up a lot of walks, 2.2 walks per 9 innings, but throughout his career, he's always been about an 8 strikeout per 9 inning guy. That's down to about 6.7 strikeouts per 9 innings this season, so that has been quite a bit of concern. And then on the other end, you've had Ryan Nelson, who's just been able to be a steady Eddie guy. He's not a guy that is going to give you a lot of swing and miss either. He gives you a little bit more than Chris Paddock, but he's up to only about 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but he gives up 0.9 home runs, 2.8 walks per 9 innings. He's been relatively reliable and stable there. And for Ryan Nelson, 2 runs or fewer allowed in 4 of his last 5 starts. Here's the issue that you've got for him, though. Bottom 5 team for the Arizona Diamondbacks in terms of bullpen ERA, as Shelby Miller has been really the lone guy that has been able to come through for this bullpen, and now he's dealing with a little bit of injury. And then you just have a poo-poo platter of different guys that are supplying you with an ERA that is a 4 or better. Anthony DeSclafani is actually below a 4, so congratulations there. But Jalen Beeks, Jake Woodford, who's been utilized as a long guy, Ryan Thompson, Juan Murillo, these guys have not been great. And Ryan Eugenio Suarez, who knows if he's actually going to be playing in this game. 36 home runs. He was hit by a pitch a few days ago as well, so that's an issue. They obviously trade away Josh Naylor, but you still have plenty of guys who are able to find a way to get on base. This is a Diamondbacks team that overall is in the top 6 in the big leagues in terms of runs per game. Now, Corbin Carroll hitting about a 200 since he's come off the injury list has been less than great, but Geraldo Perdomo about a 370 on base. Pavin Smith, when he's been out there, has been able to give about a 370 on base. He's another guy that hit the injured list, so that's a bit of an issue. Alec Thomas is out seeing some at bats, and he's been fine. He's been able to about a 250 or so. And then Ketel Marte of the Marte Parte, home run every 14 at bats, 390 on base. Do have to love what you're seeing there. And this is a Tiger squad that is in the top 9 in all baseball in terms of runs per game. A lot of their issues have actually come to the bullpen. I'll get to that in a minute, but Spencer Torkelson, 23 home runs, 335 on base. Riley Green, 25 home runs, hitting at 270. And then the ancillary guys do a nice job finding a way on base. Dylan Dingler, Avi Baez, Zach McKinstry, Gleyber Torres, they're all in between about a 266 to 280. Cole Keith is up to about a 333 on base, but since June 1st, this has been a Tigers team that's been in the bottom 8 in terms of their bullpen ERA, with Tommy Kahnle really acting up. He's above a 4.5 ERA for the season. Brendan Hennessy, Will Vest, Brian Herter, these have been your reliable guys with a sub-3.15 ERA. Chase Lee is starting to poop the bed a little bit as well, so it does make it an interesting circumstance. I think that Paddock actually dazzles in his first start with Detroit. I did set my total at an 8.6, so at the 9, I'm in on the under. And for the Tigers, I'm going to be willing to lay the money line, set them at a minus 132. 973, 974 on the board. The Washington Nationals are in the road. They're facing off against the Houston Astros. We do know that Mackenzie Gore is going to be on the bump for Houston, and it's looking like DBD for the Houston Astros, so this is a game that's presently off the board. This should be a Ryan Gusso start for the Houston Astros. They might utilize him as a little bit more of a bulk guy, and if you do indeed get Gusso going against Mackenzie Gore, I did set the Astros at a minus 114 on the money line. We'll lay up to a minus 113 there, plus 115 or better. We'll be looking at the Nationals, and set my total to wear an 8 or less. I'm in on the over at 8.5 higher to the under. You have to think that you're going to be seeing a lot of bullpen work in this game, and if you do indeed get Ryan Gusso, he's been utilized both as a starter and as a reliever reliever. He's made 10 relief appearances, and he's made 13 starts this season, so he's been up, down, all around. And his last start against the Athletics, this was on Friday, so that would put him in line to be able to start this game. Gave up 8 runs in 3 1/3 innings, so that was very much less than savory, and that was an ERA booster. But for Gusto, he's been able to do a nice job of being able to get some swings and misses. About 9.2 strikeouts per 9 innings. Of 1.4 home runs per 9 innings is a little bit concerning. About 3 walks per 9, 5.18 ERA. The fielding dependent is below 5, though, so I do think that he's going to be able to go out there and give you a sustainable start, I think is the best way of putting it. He goes up against a Nationals team that does rank in the top 10 in all baseball and runs per game away from home. I'm not sure why they generate much more offense away from home rather than at home, but CJ Abrams, 14 home runs this year, 11 of them have come on the road. He's been hitting about a 270. Josh Bell here in the month of July has actually hit above a 300. He's up to 13 bombs. Nathaniel Lowe, not hitting for a lot of average, but 15 home runs. You've had some of these young guys be able to rise up and do a solid job as well. Having Keibert Ruiz out of the fold has been hurting them at the catcher spot, but Brady House has now been able to hit a 250. James Wood has experienced a bit of regression here in July, but still 24 home runs at above a 350 on base. And then for the Houston Astros, Jose Altuve hitting a 275 with 17 home runs is big. They have a deal with a little bit of an injury to Isak Paredes, so do want to be mindful of that. And Jeremy Pena, he's going to be out for this game as well, but you still have quite a few guys that are able to find a way to be able to give you some power. Yennier Diaz, Christian Walker, 13 home runs apiece entering into Tuesday. Now, both guys not giving you a lot in terms of on-base percentage, both below a 300 on base, but Mauricio Dubon has been hitting a 260 in a very small sample size, guy that has been very well traveled, and Taylor Trammell has been able to give you a bit of production as well. And for Mackenzie Gore, he has been an absolute strikeout artist for the Washington Nationals. And for Gore, he's actually been able to do a nice job in terms of being able to do the little things well as well. He's given up 1 home run, 3.4 walks per 9 innings. That's a career low for him to go along those 11 strikeouts per 9 innings. So 3.52 ERA, closer to a 3.28 fielding independent, and he's given up 2 runs or fewer in 4 of his last 5 starts. But this Washington Nationals bullpen is just absolutely atrocious. They are dead last in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. You've had so many guys like Edward Salazar throwing there, Zach Brzezinski, even the closer and Kyle Finnegan. All these guys are giving you above a 4 ERA. Andrew Chafin has really been the lone guy that's been reliable in this bullpen, along with Brad Lord, who they had to start him earlier in the series because they have so few guys that they're able to start that it's not even funny. And for the Astros, this is a top 5 unit with regards to their bullpen ERAs. You've had the Bryants, Brian King, Brian Abreu. When he's been out there, you've been having the closer and Josh Hader be absolutely amazing for this team. You additionally have been able to have Steven Okert all be able to give you a sub 325 ERA. So I do think that in this circumstance, the Astros, even though they've got the pitching disadvantage, should be a bit of a favorite. I'm willing to lay up to a minus 113 on their money line, plus 115 or higher. Looking at the Nationals, and then 8 or less, I'm in on the over 8.5 or higher. The under 975, 976 on the card. It is the Atlanta Braves. They're on the road. They're facing off against the Kansas City Royals. Right now, it is Joey Wentz who is confirmed as a starter for the Atlanta Braves, and it is TBD who's going to be on the bump for the Royals. And right now, I am hearing through the grapevine that we might be getting the day that we have been waiting for a long time. It is looking like Dallas Keuchel might be getting the chance to get the start here on Wednesday, and that's very interesting to say the least. And if you do indeed get Dallas Keuchel, I set the Braves at a minus 126 on the money line. I'd be willing to lay up to a minus 125 there, plus 127 or higher. Looking at the Royals, and I set a total of around 9.5 or less. I'm in on the over, a 10 or higher to the under. We'll go with Joey Wentz first because we know that he is going to be starting in this one. And for Mr. Wentz, he has been causing, well, teams that have been backing him to Wentz in pain because he has not necessarily been too great throughout his career. Has been utilized as a starter and as a bullpen piece. So he's been up, down, all around throughout his career. Overall for the season, between 3 different teams, he has been posting up an ERA of about a 362 with a 341 fielding dependent. Doesn't give up the deep balls, 0.7 home runs per 9 innings, but he has given up 3.5 walks per 9. So he has been a little bit of a random guy that has not went more than 4 1/3 innings in any of his appearances, whether that be a start or coming out of the bullpen all season long. So something to be mindful of. And for the Kansas City Royals, about 3.1 runs per game at home that it said last in all baseball. They've been a little bit better here in the month of July, but Salvador Perez has been a main catalyst for that. With Perez, he was hit by a pitch and he had an elbow contusion a few days ago, so he might not be good to go in this one. He was supplying 18 home runs to have Vinny Pasquantino, Bobby Witt Jr. combined 32 home runs. With Pasquantino, he's sitting about a 265, closer to about a 290 with 27 stolen bases for Bobby Witt Jr. Miguel Garcia sitting at 300, but lots of guys are in between about a 240 to 250 that just don't give you power. Drew Drew Waters, Jonathan India, Kyle Isbell, all in that fold, and the young guys have just not stepped up. Jack Caglione, 205 on base. Nick Lofton is giving you a 254 on base. It's not been great for John Rave, so that's been an issue. And if you do indeed get Dallas Keuchel, that's actually a downgrade from a bullpen game. Like a bullpen game, I'd probably be willing to set this more at like a plus 110 or something like that. That would actually be a 15-cent upgrade because the Royals bullpen has actually been solid. Lucas Erceg, Carlos Aceves, both of these guys are supplying a sub 285 ERA. Steven Cruz is starting to act up a little bit. You can tell that they're feeling that injury to Daniel Lynch, but I mean, if you get Dallas Keuchel, man, I recognize he had a few okay starts with the Milwaukee Brewers last season. The Brewers literally acquired him for $1 last year. I'm not even kidding when I say that, but I mean, for Dallas Keuchel, he's made 3 starts out in Omaha, 13 and a third innings. He's still not giving you any strikeouts whatsoever. I think that he had to pitch for the Chiba Lotte Marines out in the Japanese League a little bit last year as well. Why this guy is still pitching, I have no idea, but I mean, this is a guy that I don't want any part of whatsoever, even against an Atlanta Braves team that has been so sad and miserable all season long. It is a Braves unit that entered in this series in the bottom 10 in all of baseball in terms of runs per game, but you still have some top guys in this lineup. You've been able to have Matt Olson give you nearly 370 on base with 18 home runs, Sean Murphy, Austin Riley, Marcell Ozuna, Ronald Acuna Jr., all between 14 and 16 home runs. Acuna, a home run every about 13 at-bats, over a 400 on base. You've had Ozuna give you about a 360 on base, so and you've got guys that are able to move the line. Drake Baldwin, 350 on base, so these guys have been solid. They finally sent Desbal Hernandez back up to the big league level after they mind-numbingly had him at the minor league level, and Raciel Iglesias has been terrible at the closer spot. Raciel Iglesias rocking a nearly 5 ERA. Anya de Los Santos, Aaron Bummer, both above a 4 ERA, so these guys have been a little bit of an issue. If you take a look at things ever since June 1st, the Atlanta Braves have been one of your lesser bullpens in terms of ERA at 22nd, so it's an interesting circumstance here. If you do indeed get Keuchel, I'd be setting the Royals at a plus 126. Like I said, bullpen game is more like a plus 110, so we need at least plus 127 to take a shot on Keuchel. Minus 125 or better, looking at the Braves, and then 9.5 or less, looking at the over, a 10 or higher, the under. 977, 978 on the card. It is the Philadelphia Phillies. They are on the road against the Chicago White Sox. Adrian, don't call him Doogie Howser, is on the bump for the Southsiders, and Taijuan Walker goes for the Phils. 9 is total, over and under, anywhere between minus 105 to a minus 115, and with the Phillies, they're between minus 137 to a minus 145, and you're going to be getting between plus 118 to plus 126 on the Chicago White Sox, and I did set my total at 8.2. I'm going to be in on the under. For the White Sox, this is a bunch that has struggled miserably on offense all season long, in the bottom 5 in terms of runs per game, and you just don't have a lot of power. Andrew Benintendi has been able to supply you with 13 home runs. Who knows if Luis Robert is actually going to be still on the team for this game, but he's been able to give you double-figure amount of bombs. But even if you have Luis Robert out there, he has been miserable in terms of moving the line, getting on base, and you have so much of that with this bunch. You've got Edgar Quiero along Lennon Sosa, both hitting above a 265, but you just don't have a lot of guys that are able to flat out hit, whether that be for average or for power on this roster. You've been able to get a few guys that have been able to step up a little bit more for this team, so that has been good. Colson Montgomery is giving you 4 home runs and 70 at-bats, hitting above a 255, so a little bit of upside there, but even for this White Sox team, the bullpen has not been that great. They're in the bottom 10 with regards to their bullpen ERA as well. You've had a pair of guys, Dan Altavilla, Steven Wilson, they're both supplying a sub-3 ERA, and when Tyler Gilbert's been out there as he's dealt with some injuries, he's been solid as well, but then you get the guys like Jordan Leisure, Brandon Iser, Grant Taylor, all above a 4.4 ERA. Whenever Penn Murphy was out there, he was rough. They've been playing mix and match with these just failures of veterans in the bullpen, and none of them have really panned out. And for the Philadelphia Phillies, it's not like this bullpen is amazing, but you do have a Ryan Kirkring who's been able to give you a sub-3 ERA. Max Laser has been able to step up along Matt Strom. They're both below a 3.35 in terms of their ERA as well, so things are looking a little bit more encouraging with these guys. If you look since June 1st, they've been an average to slightly above average team with regards to that bullpen ERA, so I do like what I'm seeing there. And with Taijuan Walker, he was giving up 2.6 home runs per 9 innings last year, closer to about 1.6 home runs per 9 innings this year. Now, it's not like it's amazing or anything like that, but you know what? He's been able to do a little bit better, posting up a sub-4 ERA. He's been pretty much consistent being a bullpen arm versus being a starter, so it's not like he's got one demonstrative split any other way, but but I do think that with this spot, you're going to be able to get the Philadelphia Phillies to bust out on offense, as well as you've had Kyle Schwarber supply 35 plus home runs, over a 370 with his on base. You've had Bryce Harper come off the injury list, and he has been able to give you well north of a 350 on base, and now he's up to 13 plus home runs. You've got a few other guys that are doing a solid job in terms of getting on base. You don't necessarily have supreme power on this team. Max Kepler has a double figure amount of homers, but he's not one of those guys moving the line. But Trey Turner sitting about 345 on base. He's up to 11 home runs. You've had Nick Castellanos give you 14 bombs. JT Realmuto, both hitting in that neighborhood about a 265 to 270. So I do think that for the Phillies, they do a nice job of being able to get to a guy in Adrian Hauser, who's been actually really good thus far this season for the White Sox. Below a 2.25 ERA. He's not getting a lot of strikeouts either. He's hovering in that neighborhood about 7 strikeouts per 9 innings, but the reason why he's been so successful, he has pitched over 60 innings in his starts thus far this season, and he's only allowed 3 home runs, about 0.4 home runs per 9 innings. So, circumstance where I do think that this is a lower scoring game. I did set my total at an 8.2, so I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the under. And with the money line, I did set the Phillies only as a minus 132 favorite. Right now, if you're looking to lay a run F with the Philadelphia Phillies, you're going to be finding that at a plus 110. I would need much more than that, and it's a circumstance where we're going to be seeing where this goes overnight, because I'm starting to see some minus 137s out there. But if we're able to get north of a plus 130 on the White Sox, we'll be willing to buy in on their money line, and right now I am seeing a plus 130, so anything above a plus 130 like the White Sox, and I'm going to be in on that under. And we wrap things up with 979, 980 on the card. The Cleveland Guardians are going to be playing us to the Colorado Rockies. Kyle Freeland is on the bump for the Rockies, and Kobe Allard goes for the Guardians, and the Guardians are anywhere between minus 188 to minus $2 favorites, between plus 162 to a plus 167. That number on Colorado, and your total is 8. The under is minus 115, and the over is minus 105, and this does feel like way too low of a total, as I did set the Guardians on the money line at a minus 108. I was willing to lay pretty much a minus 105 on the run line, but I also did set my total here at an 8.8, so it is a circumstance where I'm going to be in on this total over for the Guardians. This is just not the same bullpen that it was a season ago for the Guardians. They've had quite a few issues with these guys, like Hunter Gaddis is posting up a over 3.5 ERA. You've had Kobe Allard be actually a relatively good long guy coming out of the bullpen, but when he's been in the role of a starter throughout his career, he's got an ERA above a 5, and that's my main issue with him. When he's been in this role, he just has never been able to succeed, and he's done so for a variety of different places, the Phillies, the Rangers, the Atlanta Braves, so that's been a bit of an issue, and I have a feeling that there's quite a bit of regression coming to his 2.83 ERA, as he's getting only 5 strikeouts per 9 innings, so that's something that does concern me. For Kyle Freeland, he's not necessarily any sort of a strikeout artist either, and he's been getting hit hard this season, 5.24 ERA, not really giving up the deep ball in terms of getting hit hard, about 1.2 home runs per 9 innings, but only about 6.5 punch-outs per 9 for Freeland. He's coming in on a pretty rough run. He has given up at least 3 runs in 4 of his last 5 starts. Now, if you look at the fielding independent being just a hair below a 4, he should be doing for a little bit of positivity, but he's also backed up by a bullpen that has been all sorts of brutal, to say the least. Victor Vodnik, Jake Bird, these guys have been able to give you a sub-4 ERA, but Juan Mejia is starting to act up. Seth Alverson, these guys are giving you above a 4.5 ERA, and you've had Tyler Kinley just be awful for the last few seasons in general. And for this Rockies bunch, it is a unit that is only averaging about 3 runs per game away from home, that is in the bottom 2 in the big leagues, but they've been able to erupt a little bit more in this series, and Hunter Goodman has 13 home runs on the road this season. He's hitting above a 280. You've had Tyler Freeman hitting a 300 for this team, and Warming Venable has actually been able to give this team a few home runs. He's been able to give you a little bit of production. Now, the likes of Orlando Arcia, Brenton Doyle, Kyle Farmer, Michael Taglia, you've got a whole bunch of guys in below a 220, and it's a top-heavy Cleveland Guardians lineup, as well as you've been able to have Kyle Manzardo start to hit for a little bit more average, 15-plus home runs, hitting at 235. That's great. And Jose Ramirez, 21 bombs, 370 on base. Stephen Kwan, a 350 on base. But then you've got so many guys like Daniel Sheeman, Bo Naylor, John Kenzie Noel when he's been at the big league level, Jonathan Rodriguez, David Fry, Brian Rocchio, a whole bunch of guys. They're earning a 221 or lower for this unit, so it does make things very interesting in this ordeal, but I do think that the Guardians continue to get to Kyle Freeland. I set my total at 8.8, so I like the over, and with this run line, I was willing to take pretty much anything of even money or better, finding that at a plus 115 on the Guardians, taking that run line, and I'm going to be taking a shot on the over, and that'll wrap things up for for the Wednesday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. Big thanks to Matt Josephs, aka Major Matt, for joining me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of two ways we'll fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind the letters EM, they mean does not matter, so per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to on this podcast via that 5-star review. And I'm with you guys every single day on this podcast throughout the MLB season, so I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.